Hi, this is Kerry Artak with Wicked Stocks, bringing you your weekly Bitcoin update. That is the Bitcoin Real-Time Index for the week of Monday, October 20th, 2025. This is a free analysis that we provide on our Wicked Stocks YouTube channel. I'll just remind you that at wickedstocks.com, we provide a daily analysis in the SPY and the Triple Q, a weekly analysis in the S&P 500, NASDAQ 100, and Apple stock. We also provide 2 individual stock picks a week that cater to the 3 to 5 week out to the 3 to 5 month position or swing trader. And you can check that all out by going to wickedstocks.com and taking advantage of our 5-day free trial. Let's jump into Bitcoin. So you can see over the last few months, really since this July high, we've pushed through, but we've yet to close above this full wave count that came into existence as an objective following the settlement almost a year ago above this 5-year channel top. So if we were to go back in time to November of last year when we closed above this 5-year structure, that did set up 122,433 as our next, I mentioned at the time, a 3 to 5 month target. A couple of months into that, we stalled out with the tariff talks that collapsed the market or the Bitcoin back to the 5-year channel top that is now 85,886. And while we certainly spiked through it quite a bit over the 2 months from March into April, we never closed back below this structure, which maintained the integrity of the support level that indicated or maintained 122,433 as our next big picture objective, which we obviously tested in July and once again most recently in October. In fact, the October high, we collapsed back to close clearly negative on the week, and then we continued falling away. So what we have now, we still have 122,433 as a meaningful ceiling of resistance. And in fact, we settled below a floor of support on Friday of last week that is now 108,784. So this is a ceiling of resistance, 108,784, that can contain buying, I'm going to say, through the rest of the year, because I do see a 2 to 3 month sell signal now in play below 108.74 that should yield this mid to upper 80s over the next 2 or 3 months. Now, there will be elements on the way down that can contain weekly selling pressures. One of them I just showed here, the simple trend line off these lows over the last year or so at 94,451. I don't expect to see that this week, but you never know. We've had the volatility that would allow this. Holding below 108.84, I will say a 2 to 3 week target at 94,451 and a 2 to 3 month objective at 85,886 to 88,290. 88,290 is a rising, this goes back to the December high of last year. This is almost a 1-year channel bottom unto itself. This is a significant zone of long-term support, able to contain selling well into 26, and we can round up from here to new highs over the following months. So there you have it. 2 to 3 month target remains in effect below 108,784, anticipating the mid to upper 80s. Now, upside, we're very close to this level right now, 108,784. And I'll just kind of jump to this chart here that I'm going to say any daily settlement this week above 108,784 will allow and should actually yield 113,105. And that is nothing more than the low of the high that was put out several weeks ago. This could stall the market for the balance of the week. But if we do close the week Friday back above 108,784, that does negate, void, neutralize the sell signal that presently anticipates the mid to upper 180s over the next 2 to 3 months. So if we close back above 108.74, I think within 3 to 5 weeks or less, by the end of November or sooner, we reach this 122.433 level again. And I've been showing this longer-term channel top at bear with me, at 139.825 as our long-term resistance. Now, what is the indication for anticipating 139.825? I do think you can make a case for it with a settlement back above 108.784, but because 122.433 has held so nicely, I do think, your final straw on that notion would be a settlement above 122.433. But let's put it this way. If we close above 108.784 this week, I don't see any good reason to be short Bitcoin. If you want to add more to your portfolio, if you want to buy more, if you're long already, I think that would be an indication, because it's basically Bitcoin is telling us not going to continue south into the mid to upper 80s anytime soon, and in fact will likely continue higher. You could also, and I'll just put this out there, wickedstocks.com, the Bitcoin market does follow the stock market quite closely. And so when the stock market sells off, Bitcoin will sell off, even get out ahead of that sell-off as it has been happening recently. But if the S&P 500 closes above a 5.5-year rising channel top over the next week, 2 or 3, which has been testing a lot for the last month and backing away ever so slightly, but if we can close above that level, I do think you can act on that buy signal in the S&P 500 in Bitcoin itself. In other words, I think you can buy Bitcoin because I see the S&P continuing higher as we move into the first quarter of next year. And the stock market, when it's in this sort of perpetual rally state, is very frothy. There's just a lot of room for speculative endeavors like Bitcoin. And when the stock market goes into a bear market, which it's not in yet, but it may tip in that direction in the coming weeks, then you've got Bitcoin likely to continue south. The Bitcoin seems to be tipping its hand a little bit, maybe foretelling a stock market sell-off. But I don't want to make too much of this. If we close back above 108.74 at the end of this week, I do see a good low for the month of October and quite possibly the rest of the year within several weeks, 3 to 5 weeks, 122.433 in reach. A settlement above 122.433 over the next few weeks would then signal this 1-year rising channel top at 139.825, where we actually could top out on a quarterly basis, possibly well into 26. I'm going to leave it at that for this week's Bitcoin update. You have a great week.